The way that we socialize have increasingly turned to like online socialization, the metaverse, like that is its actual final vision. But I think like it's gonna happen first in games.
Peggy, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to talk about all you're building with Ego. Before we get into all that you're working on company-wise, I want to know a little bit more about yourself. Can you give me a 30-second pitch to who you are?
I'm one of the co-founders of Ego. So I actually was born in China and I moved to the United States when I was 2 years old. I grew up in Wisconsin, Midwest, went to elementary, middle, and high school there. And then while I was in high school, I joined my school's robotics team. That's when I kind of fell in love with technology and engineering and kind of continue wanting to pursue it. I was very lucky to have gotten into Stanford. And while at Stanford, I pursued a lot of my interests in research and robotics, self-driving cars, and AR/VR. Yeah, mostly, so the story behind self-driving cars was I was a really bad driver when I was like 15 and a half years old. And I got into 3 accidents my first year. And yeah, I kind of outed myself on camera, but yeah, don't ever let me drive. Basically, from that moment on, I decided that I would like automate myself and people like me out of driving, and ended up doing a lot of robotics work. And while doing robotics work, I realized that there was a big similarity between kind of 3D perception and environment in robotics and self-driving cars to also the AR/VR space and in gaming and 3D. And so that's eventually why I went to Meta. Full time, I worked on AR/VR avatars relating to the metaverse, and eventually met my co-founder and decided to start Ego.
Yeah.
And so that's where I am.
Very
today.
cool. I want to go back. You said that you kind of grew up being obsessed with the robotics space and interested in like building in that industry. Can you tell me like the first time that you realized that robotics was something you were interested in?
Ooh, I think it was like when I first started coding. Actually, I first started coding on a TI-84 calculator. There was like the basic kind of little like language in there, and my first game that I ever programmed was Snake.
Okay.
And then while I was programming the game, the person who taught me how to program on the calculator was actually in the school's robotics team. And then when I went there, they taught me how to use C++ to basically teach the robot how to throw like basketball and like things like that. And just kind of seeing like what I coded like actually show up in like a physical space was super, super powerful. And I was like, that was like the magic moment when I was like, oh, like I gotta pursue this. Like this is like my life's passion.
Yeah.
Like I want to continue doing it.
I love that. So you kind of started with gaming, went into some other spaces within the robotics industry, and now you're back in the gaming industry. Can you tell me a little bit about what Ego does?
Yeah, so we're making an infinite game with an AI 3D simulation engine. So what that means is that we want to make a game where people can play forever, and they can actually change the game as they play it with natural language. So AI has gotten to the point where you can now create entire like worlds, stories, characters with just natural language, and you don't have to know how to code. And what's even more interesting is that now these agents are actually very human-like. So because the way that natural language works, if you add like the memory system, if you add a brain and reasoning system, and if you add actually like a perception system, and basically the ability for the agents to do actions and to write code in a 3D space, they actually behave exactly as a human, you would expect human to behave in those spaces. And that's actually one of the reasons why I think I started with robotics and I kind of come a full circle with these agents in 3D spaces, is because you actually have like the same perception system, right? So in a robot, you kind of perceive the environments around you. You figure out like where this object is or where that object is, and then you figure out like how you want to pick something up, or you see something and you're like, oh, what do I need to do to finish this task? And you actually do the same thing with agents in gaming.
Okay.
And so what's really interesting is that I feel like my stories kind of come up full circle, where it's like, oh, like the same brain, like the AI brain, like the reasoning behavioral engine that you use in robots, you can actually apply to agents in gaming. And so that's one area of really interesting thing that we started with Ego. And the other thing, obviously, is that the fact that agents can actually write code directly into the game engine. So if you find like a bug, or if you are a player and you want like this new thing appearing in your game because you're just very interested in that, your agents can like kind of change the game directly while you're playing it, and like make that object or level or map appear in game. And so we think that's really powerful, and it's actually like a new way of gaming.
Yeah. So essentially you're allowing people who don't really know about the coding space to essentially code these games, correct?
Yeah. So we want basically gamers who, I would say like 99% of gamers don't know how to code. Yeah. Even though I feel like once you're into it, like a lot of people start like researching how to mod games, they start researching like how to build games. But because they don't have the technical skills, it makes it really hard for them to actually bring their imagination to life. And so what we've found at Ego is like, well, if you can just code up entire levels or games using just natural language, and all you have to do is just like allow the users to like speak it into existence, or to basically type it into existence, that's really, really powerful. And so this is essentially what we are building with Ego and what we're continuing to build today.
So what phase of the company are you at right now? Are there people who are using it? Is it in like a beta test right now? Where are you at with this kind of development?
We're very early. So we went through Y Combinator, we raised a seed round, and we're kind of focused on building a private beta for GDC next year. And so we have like some people kind of testing it, but I would say a lot of the work right now is a lot of R&D, and just like having the internal team test it and make sure that we're able to use it very well. Because I think one of the things is, if you're a game developer and you find it like super easy to build games with just a couple words and natural language, then it obviously, hopefully, like once we start opening it up to other people, like they would also find it really easy, and we can iterate it from there.
How are you guys planning to monetize Ego once you are like to the public?
Yeah, so we're gonna monetize it mostly through both the game and creations.
Okay.
So for anything you create, so mostly for like AI agents that you create, you can sell them on the marketplace, you can trade them with other people, you can sell accessories and cosmetics. So all of these things you can do. You can sell battle passes, and you can also sell games and mini like experiences inside of Ego as well.
Okay.
So drawing a lot of inspiration from traditional gaming economics.
Totally, yeah. Have investors like understood this mission of yours? What have those conversations looked like? Are they looking for other things from you guys that you then are building out, or what have those conversations been like?
We hope that all the investors who have invested in us believe in our mission, because I think that is, we were very fortunate to have raised a relatively big seed round and have a lot of investors who are very interested in investing in us, and some of whose money we couldn't take because that would put us, as taking more dilution than we had planned on doing. And so actually, I think all of the investors who have actually invested in us do believe in a mission. And we actually really love working with them. And so it's a great opportunity.
So who is your target user base for?
Just gamers, people who like to play games, people who are consumers, people who just really, really like games.
Yeah. In terms of your funding journey, you guys are a YC company. You said you raised a seed round as well. What is your pitch to these investors in like very simple language for maybe an investor who doesn't know so much about the AI space? What's your pitch of why you guys are worth investing in?
Yeah, so I think like one of the main things that we pitched was that in kind of this age of AI, you have to make a game that's also a game engine. So I think a lot of times people are like, oh, if you want to make games, you can just like create them in Unity or Unreal or Roblox, and then they would just appear. But we found it actually really hard because a lot of people, this sounds bad, a lot of people are not very creative. And so the top like 1% of all creators make like 99% of like all the content that people play and generate like 99% of all the revenue. And a lot of where creators kind of like make these things come from actually existing games and existing mods. And so actually, if you look at some of the most popular games like Dota, like League, Counter-Strike, they all came from mods of previous games. And even a lot of the game engines actually came like Unity, Unreal. They came out of basically the teams building the infrastructure to make existing games. And so what we found is that like in these spaces, like a lot of people play Minecraft today, and a lot of people really like a lot of kids like kind of get into coding by playing Minecraft. I mean, I got into coding something different with Snake, but kids today get into coding using Minecraft and playing Roblox. And so we thought that if we build a base game where people are very interested, like very similar to Minecraft, something that's very creative, something that people can spend hours playing, and that's really fun, they will naturally want to continue modding the game and would want to basically, because these are kids and we're not targeting like Roblox age kids, we're targeting kind of older people, older kids like 16 to 18 plus. They're interested and they have kind of some skill set, like some creativity, some skill set, some motivation to actually play the game, but also use natural language to change the game as they play it and to be able to create new games and new experiences. And so that's kind of what we pitch to investors. And I think investors really like the idea that it's kind of a combination of Minecraft and Roblox. And it's because it's like Minecraft if you had like a base game, and then Roblox in terms of you can like create games and mini experiences on top of it.
Yeah, for sure. Why was it important for you guys to have, because you mentioned in your answer there that you wanted to have a game, but also a game that you could build on top of,
right,
as opposed to like a software that people can just build their own game in and of itself or something along those lines. Why was it important for you to have kind of both sides of that?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of reasons. I think like the main reason is this is such a new technology that we don't even know what games built with AI is going to look like. So for one reason to build, before you can build the tools to do that, you actually need to build the base game. So you understand, you are your own customer,
right,
like you understand like what you're looking for in that and be able to build kind of infra that powers that. The other thing is, I think, again, like goes back to the creativity question, is that people find it much easier to remix content, like TikTok is a prime example of that, versus creating entirely new content. And I mean, right now, like if you go on social media, everything's kind of people like remixing content. And so we thought that the best way in games for people to remake content is actually to create a base game for people to edit and move on from that. And so, yeah, I guess like fan fiction is another example of that, creative writing, all of those things. And so we want to lower the barrier of entry to creativity as much as possible so that people can build on top of it.
That definitely makes sense. Do you have any predictions, like as you're deciding what to build, how you're going to build it out? Do you have any predictions about what the future of gaming is going to look like?
I think the future of gaming is going to look like the future of media. So that, I mean, I think the prime example is like kids are spending more and more time playing games. They're playing spending more time playing Roblox or spending more time playing Minecraft. And eventually we actually think that gaming is gonna replace in-person socialization. I think it already kind of have. Like people are, like kids today, they're like socializing on Discord and they're socializing on Roblox and they're socializing on Minecraft. And they actually hang out with their friends in their like virtual 3D avatars, in these like 3D virtual spaces already. And when we grew up, I don't know, maybe I was kind of in that like in-between phase as well, when people like would grow up on social media. It's like you kind of use like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and you kind of use that as a way to kind of keep in touch with your friends like after school. And you like texting was kind of the new big thing. Like kids will, you know, start having their cell phones and everything. And so the way that we socialize have increasingly turned to like online socialization versus in-person socialization. And I think games are kind of the next step of that, is it will replace kind of a lot of, you know, film, like TV, and it has already replaced some in-person socialization. And I think in the future, it's gonna continue to be like that. I think like Mark Zuckerberg's notion of the metaverse, like that is its actual final vision. personally, I don't think it's going to happen in VR first, but I think like it's going to happen first in games.
Yeah. Do you think that's a good thing to be moving stuff out of real life and then into these online platforms?
I think it could be a good thing or could not. That's why I actually have on my LinkedIn profile that we're building a matrix, because I think like eventually when we're moving towards that situation, it's going to be very, very similar to like living in a simulation or like living in the matrix. So I actually don't know if it's a good thing, but I think like if people are happier doing that, and it seems like they are, then eventually that will be a good thing for humanity.
Yeah. You've worked at places, outside of Ego too, that has probably definitely helped you inform like how you're building this company. One of those being Meta. What are some of those like lessons that you've learned from those other jobs that have been implemented into now what you're building?
Yeah, so I think like robotics was like pretty obvious. Being able to understand like how robots think and perceive the world, and like bringing that into 3D agentic behavior and 3D agents that are able to perceive the environment in our games is really, really powerful. So just a lot of technical similarities there. AR VR was definitely kind of so I worked at Meta on Meta Reality Labs, worked on Oculus as an internship as well. Working on machine learning for AR, VR, avatars, and the Oculus itself. And so one of the things that I found that was like really interesting is that was kind of the moment where I understood that like the 3D AR, VR gaming space has a very similar kind of technology and to the robotic space. And so that's when I kind of connected the dots. And I was like, oh, like what I built in like agents in the physical space, like robots, that can also apply to games. And so that was, I think, one of the most useful things I've learned. And because I worked on all parts of the robotic stack, I worked on like 3D perception, I worked on behavior planning, I worked on controls and actions and coding. And my background is computer science with an AI track from Stanford. So kind of getting that AI background and mixing it all together, like I feel like it kind of ended up by accident, but like looking back, and like I think Steve Jobs said, you always like connect the dots when you're looking back.
It all makes sense now.
It all makes sense now, because like I feel like my background actually like fits me quite well in what we're doing today, because gaming, even just general gaming, not even just AI gaming, is like a mixture of like many different types of art forms. It's like sound design, it's narrative design, it's programming, it's art, it's 2D art, it's 3D art. Like all of it combined is probably one of the hardest kind of art forms. And science, like it's a mixture of art and science to actually build. And I think like the same thing kind of happens in robotics. And I feel like I'm just like really drawn to something where it's like very kind of hard problems to tackle like systematically.
My last question for you is, in the next couple of years, or let's say like 1 year, you said that you have like a funny announcement coming out. What else is to come with Ego? Is there something you are most excited about that's on the horizon right now?
Yeah, so at GDC, we're releasing our beta version of Ego, which is the game and the game engine, and we definitely want people to try it out.
Yeah.
So we're very, very excited for that, and hopefully like the funding announcement drives a lot of traffic to people who want to try it out. So we're very excited for that. I think it's going to be super cool. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. This was great to hear about all you're building.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Alex.